from Fact Friday, I wanted to hop on here in light of the DASG election results being released. Lavos wants to hear opinions and statements from Anza College students and faculty, and more importantly, DASG Senate voters out there. So please, if you have any strong opinions, leave your thoughts here on this story, or reach out to Lavos for an in-person interview. If you haven't... Student government elections are meant to give students a voice, a chance to choose leaders who represent them, advocate for their needs, and shape policies that impact their campus experience. But at Anza College, the 2025 DASG election stirred controversy. A wave of 69 candidates engaged with student voters, but not all campaigns followed election code. Candidates campaigned aggressively, coalitions formed, and students casted their votes. But as campaigns began, so did the complaints. In 2 complaint meetings, allegations of rule breaking, pressuring and intimidating voters, and inconsistencies in how the administration handled violations were all questioned. At the center of it all stands Elevate, a coalition of 5 candidates elected to the Senate. While Elevate celebrates its victory and remain optimistic in its plans for the Senate, others believe their campaign tactics crossed a line. With accusations circulating, the question still remains: was this a fair election?
Okay, my name is Francesca and I'm 20. I wanted to run as a student trustee.
I'm Aura Sturk. I was the vice president at DASG, then I was elections commissioner for like 2 weeks.
My name is James Nguyen. I ran for the chair of administration.
My name is Nishita Mikla, and I was running for the chair of SRD.
My name is Javen Hong. I was the second place winner in terms of votes for the presidency.
My name is Suresh Javier. I ran for president.
So, hi, I am Arush Fatima. I just got elected for the position of DASG president. I ran in a coalition called Elevate. I was obviously running for president. Lakshya Saini, he was running for chair of events. Kanishka Mundara, she was running for student trustee. Varshi Pacha, she was running for chair of administration. Shreyas Menon, who was running for ICC chair. All of them got elected.
First, do you want to just kind of tell us about your campaigning process?
Yeah. So it was really fun. I met a lot of new people. I think I talked to almost 300 people throughout the whole process. We talked to nurses, people in the police department, people all over campus. It's fascinating. That part of the election process, amazing. But everything that happened preceding it was a nightmare.
The campaigning process has been, to be honest, a little controversial to me because there's been a lot of infractions and violations of the code of conduct, of the elections code, of the posting guidelines.
I felt like there needed to be at least an investigation launched into this, because as the student government, how are you going to elect someone that is gonna be leading the student, leading the Senate, but their platform is based upon accusations of false voting? They left their seats and started celebrating and cheered outside, with the whole Senate being able to hear their screams outside.
There will be no disqualifications. Guys, we're not done yet. Urge, wait up. Okay.
I found that behavior extremely disrespectful, because that is our future senators. And if they can't even bother to follow the bylaws in the meeting where we're talking about complaints and possible infractions of the bylaws, then why should we be able to respect them when they can't even follow their own rules?
This meeting today showed lots of lack of professionalism and respect for one another. We're all students here. At the end of the day, we're just trying to do our jobs and trying to make sure elections go fair and just as much as we can. Just treat each other with some grace and respect, because you all will be working with each other for the next year. So keep that in mind.
And I feel like the elections committee needs to actually do an investigation on these matters, because again, how crass is it that the elected president is built upon them forcing students to vote?
So as I've said in the first meeting, that I want to disqualify them.
For saying that it was not clear, wasn't part of info session and orientation.
Yeah, there's section 3, election code campaign material, C. It says that all candidates' campaign materials must contain the candidate's name appears on the ballot number, position, dates, time, and manner, / location voting. So it's clearly stated.
This is the orientation that was presented. It says dues include your name, positions you're running for, dates, times, and manner, location of the voting, web address or campaign materials. Don't break the DASG elections code, efficient standards of student conduct, student elections posting guidelines. I think it was really clear from our end. In every email that I sent out, I clarified that candidates should be going through campaign guidelines and the election code.
There's a difference between this information is in the codes and this information is accessible. Not just that it's expected, but that it's grounds for disqualification. These are things that you will get sent to.
So this was the email that was sent to all of the candidates. It said important final reminder regarding campaign conduct. Okay, it says, and 4, every single campaign material must include all of the following information: candidate's full name, ballot number, the position you're running for, date and time of the campaign and voting period, location of the voting website. And then we have the link to campaign guidelines and the link to the elections code.
So, to a discussion that we had on the floor that we must be reduced or disqualified from getting a reimbursement is completely false because we are international students.
We are also international students as well.
Okay.
Just letting you know. And also, this code was there before the election started, before the campaigning started, when you guys apply for general elections. Like, this is a given. We shouldn't be going around to every single candidate correcting their mistake. Candidates should be aware by reading from the codes and guidelines. I tried my best to reach out to the candidate that is up to my community. I cannot be telling everyone, oh, you should fix this, you should fix that. We had a midterm election last quarter, and we did not choose English affairs because they did not seem to read the codes. Just put them out. When you say, how should I know? It's on the campaign guidelines.
But my decision got overridden.
All in motion, say aye. Aye. All not in favor, say nay.
The motion passed.
At the complaint meeting, a lot of complaints were directed towards one coalition, which is the Elevate Coalition. They have violated the Code of Conduct, Elections Code multiple times.
However, we considered Francesca's and Akilia's statements and complaint forms. From these complaint forms, we decided Elevate have violated the Code of Conduct, particularly regarding pressuring students and voting for them.
These are the main things that were violated. The flyers that were posted did not contain dates and times of voting. Also, the banner that was posted in the main quad was hooked to the trees. The coalition also campaigned in front of Forum 1, blocking people in line that were entering the forum. The coalition also campaigned at the VTA bus stop, which is also off-campus territory, and they were preventing students from entering the bus. The coalition has been seen forcing students to vote for them. A lot of the complaints were about this, so a large part of the audience and of the student body has expressed their feelings of being pressured to vote for them. The coalition has also used whiteboards, which are not generally offered to students for campaigning, to campaign. And one thing that also happened right at the complaint meeting was that the members of the coalition left the meeting right after knowing the verdict, which violates the Code of Conduct.
I can't be happy with how the complaint meetings both went through and how there is this bit of disdain of what just occurred, because a lot of things that happened within the election was, to me, extremely unfair. The Election Code, Section 5, Article 1 states, a plea of ignorance shall not be considered a valid defense to an infraction of the DSG Election Code or any ruling of the Administration Committee.
I was kind of disappointed in seeing that their repercussions were not really all that intense.
The administration committee penalized you and members of your coalition with 40 hours of community service and a 50% reduction in campaign expense reimbursements, and A three-page essay. Yeah. Do you think this was a fair decision?
It's not my place, or I don't have capacity to be able to question the administration committee in any way and form.
I think it was fair from the administration committee's point of view, because obviously they kept in too much time and effort into these elections, and I think it was a fair compensation for them. When there's so many complaints against us, obviously there would be a doubt in the administration committee, which is like, maybe they have actually done some mistakes. So even though we claim we didn't, which we didn't, it was the administration committee's decision, and we didn't want to interfere with it because they did give in a lot of time and effort these 2 weeks. They're students like us. They've worked as hard as we did during the election week, if not more. So I think that was more.
I've done some mistakes, like probably the mistake that we have done of not writing our date and time was like error on our part, and for that we already have received 12 hours of community service.
Can I get a motion to have all of these candidates go through the process of writing a 500-word essay in person and then going through community service? All in motion say aye. Aye. All not in favor say nay.
The motion passed.
So I think 40 hours of community service and the other 3 pages of essays and the other complaint is pretty reasonable for the admin committee to give us.
First of all, when Vadi explained that there was disrespectful behavior around,
I have a public comment. Throughout this whole meeting, not only did we notice the lack of professionalism as opposed to our constant reiteration to maintain our tones and respect for one another, the blatant disregard of our words and continuation of disrupting the meeting and even going out of your way to publicly humiliate an individual who worked up the courage to speak up in a crowd speak volume of how your actions reflect your characteristics. It is stated in the code of conduct that you need to 1. Refrain from making negative personal comments, looks, or noises while a meeting is in session. 2. Remain present and seated at the table in each meeting for the duration. I will repeat again that these rules from the Student Code of Conduct have been violated throughout this meeting. I implore that after today, those who have gone against the Student Code of Conduct and failed to show these human decency reflect on their action.
there were other candidates as well, not just us. If you could see disrespectful behavior towards us, towards doing it the other students, I think you also need to consider that the fake complaints, which very much is a fake complaint, and the anonymous complaints that have been put towards us in a very reoccurring manner.
But if I was, the reason that we were given the community service was because the administration committee had received a complaint from an anonymous student who was saying that they had severe social anxiety and they felt that they were forced. And that was never our intention, and I'm sure that there's been some kind of miscommunication. But if that was the case and that person's feelings is completely valid, it was never confirmed, I would say, but if someone out there is feeling distressed, I think it would be completely fair to, give back to the community if you're causing harm to it, even though it's not confirmed that we were. But
that complaint as well, if you were there, you would have seen when she gave the complaint.
I submitted a complaint form, and I was one of the witnesses over at the Transit Center. I would just like to first start off saying I have severe social anxiety. And me submitting a complaint form in my own name, it is a move that is out of my personal comfort zone. This is a really brave thing to do. I am not personally affiliated with any of the candidates that are running. So I'm a second year and I'm transferring soon. Why do I actually care about if my friends are running or anything? They're not. But my personal experiences with other candidates who were complaining at me or judging me have not been the same. And if you are standing in front of general students and telling them to vote this number and that number, even if you're not technically saying anything or like using any words to pressure them, your presence is cultivating a toxic voting environment in front of them.
She did not have a specific name. She just called out white sweater, and two of us were wearing that. So how do you expect one of us to answer when you yourself aren't clear about the complaint? And I completely am in the favor that, it is wrong for someone to have a very disrespectful behavior to a person who's going through anxiety. Personally, I have been a person who has had that phase and I know what it feels like. But I think when you have that, you don't take advantage of it. You got to be very truthful. So when the complaint came in, she should have specifically pointed out, when everyone knew our names, we were running for positions, everyone knows our name, they know our ballot number, she could have specified who troubled her.
I also didn't really like the way they acted towards one witness that also filed a complaint, because this person clearly needed to be respected a lot, and I didn't really like the way that they acted towards this person.
Some of the Elevate group's friends, I would like to say, and I use that term loosely, they were more like their cheerleaders, but they had stood up and they had kind of turned to her and they were like, oh, so can you point out to people that you saw were pressuring you? And obviously she was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And she points out the people that she was pressured by. And then they kind of went, and then like the Elevate team kind of stood up and they were like, oh, like how can you just point out 2 random people and use that as evidence? Like that doesn't even count. Like you just pointed out 2 random people. Like we don't even know if you're telling the truth. So like that blatant disrespect of somebody who had come up and very much said like, hey, I have social anxiety, but I'm here because I want to make sure people know what my side of the story is. So for them to be like, oh, this is just random people, when their friends had asked like, hey, can you tell us who it was? And so she told them, obviously.
Can I ask a question? Can the person point out one person in this room that forced her to do?
Yeah, I was approached by
please raise your hand.
Sorry. I was personally approached by 2 candidates, and I believe one is the person in the white sweater, and I don't remember the other one. I was approached by the 2. And one other person I was not sure. Okay.
She was at the VK bus stand, I believe is the one back there, and they started basically pressuring her to vote. She was waiting for the bus. She can't go anywhere. She can't leave the stand. And they were pressuring her to vote. They went out of their way to basically harass her. She thinks this is outrageous, right? So she hears about it from somewhere. She comes to the meeting. She voiced her opinion. She said, you can see openly that she was kind of shaking. She was nervous to be there. And then she said, I have social anxiety. I really don't want to be here. I'm extremely nervous. You could hear in her voice as well as like faltering over and over again. She says her thing. The Elevate Coalition decides to pressure her a little bit. They go, point out the 2 people that harassed you. That's not part of the thing. You can't just tell, it's open discussion. You can't just point out back and forth. That's against how the committee works and how the bylaws are outlined. But the senators let it go for some reason, and she starts pointing out people. This is the one who did it, and I'm pretty sure it's the other one, but I don't remember her face exactly. And while she's talking, the brother, Arhan, I believe his name, or however he's related to them, and there are 16 other cheerleaders start making like crying faces towards her because you can see she's on the verge of tears. They start making jokes and they start like pointing and laughing at her. She did point them out, so you can make it like they can make their excuses, but they were asked, or she was asked by them to point who it was. She pointed them out, and then they still were like, "Oh, it doesn't matter."
Would we see the evidence attached to that complaint, if any? Because the complainant clearly said that they saw 2 or 3 or how many of these candidates in there, and if there is no it's their words against theirs. So if going by that logic, I'm not aware of the article. I can show it here. It says in the Code of Conduct, Section F, Article 1, attempting to use the administration committee to bias the outcome of the election. Based on this pretext, I think that this complaint should be rubbished off right away, purely because there is no evidence. It's their word against theirs, and they can clearly say that they aren't here. So I would say that this committee should rubbish this complaint right away. And if we could continue rubbishing of the complaints one by one, that would make everyone's job a lot easier. Just a suggestion. Thank you so much.
The blatant disrespect for that. And obviously this girl left the Senate room crying because the pressure she felt. It's not even like about elections code or bylaws. They just broke general student body code.
It may be that Fatima, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, Marshi Pacha Alexia Sani Kanisha Mandana Shreyas Menon was not aware of the violation and that actions were carried out with good intentions. The complaints and witnesses were emotionally harmed during the process. Thus, the admin committee have decided to require all members listed below, Arish Fatima, Marshi Pacha Alexia Sani Kanisha Mandana and Shreyas Menon, to adhere to the following verdict. 50% withholding of reimbursements for their campaign, 40 hours of community service, and a 3-page essay on a topic which the admin committee will announce in the following days. There will be no disqualifications.
It's a slap on the wrist for a big crime. It's just a slap on the wrist. Exception after exception. Excuse kept on going.
The first hearing, again, they kind of got away with it with slap on their wrist, like 12 hours of community service by June, and then just writing 500 words, which mind you, I was there when they were writing the 500 words. Most of them were done within like 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes. Most of them were giggling, talking amongst themselves, not really taking it seriously, so.
I'd like to say that all community colleges, including the student government, is subject to the Brown Act. It's a quick 2-minute search. You can always ask that. They are allowed to mute the Zoom meeting if it's in recess, but they weren't in recess, and recess only lasts for about 10 to 15 minutes. So for a full hour, it is kind of ridiculous that they muted for a full hour. And the way they justify is that there was too many conversations going on at the same time. But from the outside perspective, you want to hear those perspectives and you want to hear the rationale from each step of the way, the administration committee. Because when they were muting, the administration committee was talking to the advisors. So it's left up in the air whether the advisors made some type of comment that would influence them in a way that is not supposed to happen. We need the transparency. We need to see each and every single step of the way. If there's discussion, we need to hear it. Even the former chair of administration, the former election commissioner, even said in the Zoom audio recording, you can see the transcript in the comments, she said along the lines of, this violates the Brown Act. You can't have it muted for a full hour.
It is a violation of the Brown Act due to the censoring of the discussion and letting people deliberate amongst themselves, letting the elections committee deliberate amongst themselves away from the viewing of anyone within the public. I did find it a little disappointing in the end, the way that this was just done in a deliberate 1-hour meeting between themselves, and you couldn't even talk or bring up any other discussed points. Can you speak up? You've asked before for the elections committee, can you speak up so we can be able to hear what you're saying? Because it's supposed to be public. The deliberations are supposed to be public because and if they're not, then it just leads to the assumption that there may be bias in the results that may be processed. Who's to say that they don't have, they're not discussing something else in private that we may not even be privy to, because no one has the information that they did. I found it particularly pressing that these things were just not discussed at all. These things were just not public at all, and we don't even know what they discussed. That's lost media now. We don't know what the deliberations were, what they had their thought process were, or why they decided to do this. And I found it particularly pressing because the only evidence we have is insufficient evidence. But I found that even that response even just a little underwhelming.
we noticed that both you and Kanishka responded to our story post, responding like in the third person, supporting your own coalition with just like 2 or 3 comments. So could you explain why you chose to respond this way and felt like you kind of needed to like stand up for yourself?
Honestly, I'll tell you, I thought that all of the comments that story was receiving, you would post it, and I was really upset to see that mine was not up there. But I completely understand, as you said, you might receive 35 and you're not going to post all 35 on it. So I think now it makes sense why you did not post mine. But when I was making those comments, I think I replied with, I've actually forgotten what I replied.
What Kanishka said, just because some team won doesn't make sense to pull them out. And you said, these Elevate guys are amazing.
I can say for sure that my comments were not meant to address those or like act as if I'm trying to push down those comments or anything. I mean, it's a free country, anyone can post anything they want. But yeah, I'm not really saying that, yeah, this is what should be said, this is what should be done. It's completely up to the public and the administration committee. We're just on the sidelines here.
Because I think when people have been giving their own opinions, as a student, apart from being elected, we're also a student at the Anza. We also get to defend ourselves and talk about what really happened. And because we were on the side that has been told that they are cheaters or whatever the comments went like, the opinions of people were really harsh, and we've been trying our best to take it the best way possible and not really get affected. But I think we've done a good job and actually working hard in getting the position. So I think both of us really thought that this is a right place to come and actually speak up, because I know Logos for a fact goes for being honest and neutral and does not take sides. Being a person from Logos, I know this is not something we work on. So I thought that was a right way to actually come out and speak up that this is wrong, because we get to defend ourselves and people can throw mud at us. I think we get a chance as a student to come and talk about what really happened.
Do you think the comments like these might have given the impression of trying to like sway public opinion rather than engaging in an open, unbiased conversation just because you responded to it in the third person rather than like responding to it as like representing your own like campaign, you know what I mean?
Yes, I quite get your question on that, but I think more than supporting ourselves as a member who got elected, we were more towards being answering as a student. And it's a very clear note that people have, there are a lot of students, or I don't believe they are students because they come up with a different ID and their IDs are created on that day itself. So I think there is a certain group of people who really want to divert the public opinion, because as far as I remember, we've got a lot of good responses while campaigning and we've had really engaging conversations with a lot of people. So just because someone has lost or someone has won does not justify that person to be a good or a bad person. And I want people to understand that even if someone has lost something, like a position right now, they are a great person. Apart from these, if you ask me about the candidates, they're great people. I honestly respect all of my opponents and the other position opponents, because everyone has that drive to do something good for the people. And I think it was not a fair thing that they lost because of other people's opinions about certain people. But I think just because we come up and speak for ourselves does not mean that we're defending just thinking that people would see is wrong or right, but rather because we want the public to know both the sides and not just one and then the conversation getting biased.
Any form of government usually is for the people, by the people, of the people, and I don't want the Anza Student Government to be any separate than that. And I want all of the students on campus to be able to know what DSG is.
Listening to each and every student's voices is something that's really important. And that's why in my ideology too, I said, I want every Anza student to get equal opportunity in comparison to four-year college students.
Obviously, we're doing it for the students. Everything is dependent on the students. Our whole Anza student body is made of students. So yes, the voice matters. Everyone has feelings, everyone has opinions, everyone has their own thoughts. So I think every student has a right. So yep, it's pretty much so important.
And the first thing all 5 of us as Elevate want to do is bring it up to everyone what DSG is, and kind of let everyone know that this is where your voice is heard, or this is where you are supposed to be talking out. Like in the Senate meetings, most people don't even know that Wednesdays there is a Senate meeting going on. That's where, that's where your voice is heard. That's where the whole Senate is, and that's where you get to talk to everyone and be like, this is what I want, please come up with a plan of action.
Throughout the campaigning, after that, even today, I have a lot of people who reach out and tell me that I've done a great job and I don't have to look at the things that have been going wrong and that people are not in my favor. When 30 people are not in my favor, I have 300 more people who are in my favor. So I don't think that's going to be putting me down when I see hate comments, because I'm used to this. Being a student council member for these many years, I've learned to take these things very positive way. But my bigger gratitude would be towards students who don't support me right now or my coalition, because I think you need critics when you're getting a lot of good comments, a lot of people in support. I think you also need critics and critical people to point out things that you might not see yourself. I want every student to be represented. That does not mean we want other students to be pointed out and staged, because that is not fair.
I don't really believe that the newly elected Senate would actually represent the students at the Anza. I'm not saying this as somebody who submitted a complaint. I'm just saying this as a student, because I'm also a student, and what I've heard from students, especially from the audience at the complaint meeting or from students in general, I don't really think that they feel represented by these people. I don't really think that they willingly wanted to vote for these people. So I don't think that the new Senate is actually gonna be a good representation of our student body.
To be fair, there are a lot of changes or things that we have to be focusing on as a student government for the students. And at the end of the day, if students aren't the focus and the core of a student government, I don't think it would be a proper student government. And I don't think the voices would be represented.
Earlier you said that every student should feel represented. 35 students swiped up on our Instagram story with complaints, as I mentioned. And then I also know that the administration committee received 7 complaints and more spoke out in the complaint meeting, which you guys were at. And then there's a lot of anonymous sources who have come forward to either the administration or to Lavos. So if so many students have come out saying they feel this election was unfair, do you believe DASG should heed their request to reopen your case for further investigation in order to restore the trust of the public and kind of help you represent a broader voice of the student body? Or do you kind of think that wouldn't be necessary?
I personally think that wouldn't be necessary.
I'm sorry, you said regain the trust? I feel like we have never lost the trust of the public as such, so regaining it would be out of the question.
And even if our case is still open, I think we still are clean and we haven't done anything wrong. And on the basis of that, I just wanted to say there's nothing to hide from our side.
So we would go up, let's say, for example, to 700 votes, and then someone would be lower than us. They would come up with the same complaints on and on again. It's gonna be a loop. It would never end. They would again complain back to the administration committee. It's like a never-ending process,
Everyone is seeing this as a part that when so many students are against someone, that they are wrong. But also could be that so many students are against someone is because they're doing right, and they don't want that right to happen. I mean, anyway, you could see it anyway. You see it wrong, I see it right. When it was just funny when so many people came up with complaints right during the complaints meeting, and then throughout the election, no one really told us that you're doing something wrong. Although we corrected a lot of mistakes going on. So this shows that you were waiting for a moment, just pull us down. That's not fair. When we put in our heart and soul for the 2 weeks, I don't see it fair that, just because a couple of students think it's wrong because they lost, or their friends lost, or whatever the reason is, that we should be put up through this thing again.
What would you attribute your success to? Or the Elevate Coalition's campaign strategy in general?
I think the midnights we worked on this, the whole alliance, we've worked very hard. So I think it's dedicated to each one of us and how much efforts we kept in, as well as our friends who supported us along the way. So yeah.
Oh, could you give a few shout outs to some of those friends?
Yes, absolutely. So first up, all of the Elevate members, and then we have Arham, Shrey, and a bunch of my friends, as well as my sister, my mom, my dad.
I did want to ask about Arham, by the way, because I remember he posted on his social media that he was your campaign manager, but at the meeting he said that he was unaffiliated with the campaign and that if he was the one who broke the election quote, to disqualify him because he wasn't affiliated with your campaign.
Hi everyone, my name is Arham. I am networking manager at Boundary.O. The first video that you saw, that was me campaigning with my president for our club. We were campaigning about Boundary.O. This was unconsented videography. If the DSG doesn't take action, both of us will be filing for a complaint with the Futility and the police for unconsented videography. As for the evidences that are shown here, there were like 7 complaints if I'm not wrong, and there were 20 pieces of evidences. I request the committee to show me one piece of evidence directly showing any of the candidates in mention here implicating or breaking the elections code violation anywhere. Just one complaint with photos. I've seen myself, I've seen this lovely lady here, I've seen this guy here. Where are these candidates? Yesterday, a pigeon was telling me to vote for Francesca. That's encouragement of voting. If that is encouragement of voting, that's what says it. That is clearly mentioned in the elections code as well. Encourage students to vote for the Anza Student Government. I was encouraging people to vote while I was gone. Krishna was encouraging people to vote. We weren't directly. I didn't see one picture there showing that we were looking into their phones or we were actually scrolling their phones as has been implied here. Show us one piece of evidence that these guys have broken the election code, because from where I see, you should disqualify me because all the complaint is going against any of the people sitting here. If disqualify us, we'll be happy. We do not associate with them at all. They had made bets amongst each other who could get to vote for them more than that.
He is not our campaign manager, for just to put it out. He loves being sarcastic, so I think that's what he went on, because he was like supporting us, because all of us were emotionally going through a lot during the elections week and the complaints and everything. So he was sort of like there as like, he was like, do not go through this and stuff like that. But he was not our campaign manager. He did give us a lot of valuable advice. He sort of like explained us that this is how the campaign process goes, and you guys cannot oversee anything, because there was he's obviously ran for elections and he's had like, he knows what went on last year, so he was just guiding us through the process. I can't speak for him obviously, so I do not know what to say, but yeah.